Welcome to The Mothers-in-Law, a podcast exploring the demanding world of being a mother and a lawyer. Join my mom, Carrie Foliani, as she shares real-life stories and practical tips to help you find joy and balance in your life. Let's embark on this journey of community and support together. This show is sponsored by General Counsel West, a law firm that supports companies transforming healthcare comprised of mothers and fathers practicing law.
All right. Good morning, Christy. I'm so excited to connect with you today. And I would formally introduce that we're joined today by a general counsel, superstar, and outstanding mama, Christy Crase. She serves as the chief legal officer for professional case management and PCM trials. And she's also an incredible mother of two young women who are thriving in their own right. I mean, she's on the other side of a lot of this, so has a lot of perspective to bring to those of us that are sort of still in the thick of the season. So really excited for you to share your story with us today and your insights. Over the last, I think it's been almost 10 years that we've had the chance to work together. And I've been able to witness you really both as an incredible attorney and as an amazing mama. So I'm so happy for others to really hear from you. And so I really want to kick off our conversation today about your legal journey.
Sure.
And of course, kind of letting us know when the children arrived on the scene and what that was like.
Okay, so when I was practicing and when they arrived, is that what you were talking about? Well, to start off with, was kind of, if you will, later. Like we waited for 9 years before we had our first child after being married. So I had gone to law school while I was married and was already moving along. So when did they come along? I was practicing at that time at a major law firm in Dallas and doing M&A work. And so, I still remember my very first, I hadn't told anyone yet I was expecting. And one of the senior associates who I was very close to, we were at the printer, all night. And I'm running off every once in a while and getting sick and having to go to take a nap. And finally she looks at me and was like, what's going on? So it was when they arrived, it was like when I was a brand new associate trying to make my name as an M&A lawyer. And it was a lot, right? Just trying to
practice to try to put that into
very intense. Yeah. I mean, all practices are in their own way, but at that point in time, it was really, really busy, because we had to be there all the time. So,
right. The overnighters were a real thing.
Yep.
You can imagine.
Waiting for the fax at 2 a.m. and my husband's calling the senior associate, send her home. I'm like, I'm gonna get fired,
Get fired. That's
I didn't get fired. I did not get fired.
How did you work through that? Because obviously, once you had children, you're already up all hours also. How did that fold into, doing M&A transactions as a young mom?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, sadly, I ended up leaving, not because of that, but because when we finally had children, we wanted to be closer to family. And the firm that I was with didn't have an office in Denver, which is where I'm located and where my family is. And so it was one of those things that they kind of came similar time. I probably, I don't think it was because of that, but ended up leaving and going to another mid-sized, large regional firm. And it was a different practice, but still pretty intense. I think those first years were a little bumpy, but it was, like you said, kind of the whole balancing of, doing work, putting it down, picking it up later after they're in bed, doing things on the weekend when they're napping, kind of just finding whatever time you can find. And that was how those first couple of years kind of went,
Yeah. And one of the things I love that you've shared in the past is that, we have such an intense lawyer environment and that actually having children brought in more balance into your life, which really it really resonated with me. And I just would love you to share a little more about what that was like or what that meant.
Yeah, sure. What I meant by that was, we all go to law school, and I think people that do that have a lot of ambition. Um, and you get so into your trade and your craft, and you are working so hard to make things, especially when you're a young lawyer working in a law firm, you're trying to make everything just so, and handing it over to the partner and not getting any red lines back and everything. You're just like so into it. And I quickly realized that I could have allowed my life to become all consumed with that. Because there's a certain, at least for my personality type, maybe not all, but for me, there was such I'm a words of affirmation, a feedback person. And the better you did, the more feedback and good praise you get. And that, can become kind of, you want more, And so for me, having children made me step back, made me realize there's a lot more out there. There's a lot of things in life that I think I was missing. And the other thing it did was it brought a little bit of a gentleness, more compassionate. I felt like I was probably a better advocate and a better listener to clients, and to just a lot of those skills that you need for a mom, because you have to step back. I realized were really important in my legal career. And especially as I got older, as I started mentoring other lawyers or started having other lawyers work for me and with me, it was like, okay, I need to really stop and listen to what they're saying, kind of like with kids, that they may be screaming, you don't know what they're really wanting, but when you really listen, you do know, you ferret out what they want. And so that's what I mean by balance. Was it brought this whole other world to me that I could have easily let pass by.
I mean, the things I love about that is a lot of times I've heard, other moms that are lawyers share that their job being a lawyer gave them skills that helped contribute to the kind of mom they are. What I love your sharing is that being a mom
Yes.
helped you be better at your job, which is really
Yes.
a really excellent kind of way to frame the benefits, of it can be both ways. Like you
It
can
can
have
be.
benefits either way.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I mean, I love
Yeah.
it. The funny thing about also what you shared is, I mean, I feel like, yes, as a lawyer in our job, there is some immediate gratification from what we do. I feel like
Right.
being a mom is the longest term gratification project available,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and I feel like you definitely, are at a place where you're seeing more wins.
Mm.
I'd love if you're open to sharing about kind of some of the rewarding parts now that your children are grown, and how you're able to, kind of see the benefits of all your hard work.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I mean, I think no matter how old you are, like you still have the mom pangs for, one daughter of mine's 26, the other's 22. And it's like you still, there's things you feel like you're still involved. But you're right. At this point, kind of with them out of the house and moving on, one of the, some of the more gratifying things are, when they go through those teenage years, it's like, nothing basically. As a parent, you know nothing, and they're very clear to let you know that you know nothing. And I think that what I see now that's so gratifying is the phone calls. Mom, I forwarded this message to everybody in the company. What do I do? Or Mom, this client was unhappy with this. What do I do? Or what does this mean? When they intersect business and legal terms, and you can walk them through it. But also in the conversations and the real maturity that you see, you really realize what amazing humans they've become, and the different viewpoints that they may have, but some of the similar ones and how they resonate. And so I think that that's really the part, is you become, I don't know, that they see you much more as, oh my gosh, I realize she was doing all of these things while she was also raising us. And there's a new formed appreciation. And not that, again, you have to have that, but I think it is, you're kind of like, that,
That's exciting. I mean, from someone that's like, I'm on the verge of the teenage years and I already know I know nothing. I've been schooled on that very clearly. And yeah, we're not doing it for the appreciation, but if there's a remote possibility that there's even a little bit coming, I think it will help sustain the journey, and I think, now that you're in this place, like looking back to what that kind of teen period was like, would you give yourself any advice about how to muscle through it or navigate it with a little, more peace and calm for you as a mom?
That's a great question. I will have to say I was very fortunate, and I have two girls. And so, a lot of times it tends to be the moms that collide, with the moms. And I didn't have as much of that for whatever reason. I attribute a lot of that to my husband, but keeping that communication really, really open. I think the advice I would probably, or if I had to do anything different, looking back, it's not beating myself up as much, right? That, I didn't do this right. I didn't do that right. I mean, there's so many different paths to what's right. So it would be going back and thinking about, all right, you know, yeah, just maybe something didn't work out. And then, of course, maybe, again, stepping back, and you learn it again with like young associates or people you're working with, like let them figure all of that out first. And it's so much harder to do when it's with matters of the heart.
Yeah.
And I think we're taught at times to be a problem solver. So maybe that's one as well that I would really think about doing differently, is not trying to always, when they come to me with, here's the problem, trying to solve it immediately, but just sitting back and being much more of that counselor side or listening side and just empathetic side. Probably would have served me well.
I'll give it a go. I'm open to any advice on that. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, in crisis situations, and not that I'm suggesting that motherhood is a crisis, but there are
Yeah.
seasons within it when it's really, really hard. And I think we all have that moment when we broke down and weren't really sure kind of how we were going to navigate to the other side. And
Yeah.
one of the things even that you mentioned is, I always look for the helpers, right? Like moving to Colorado to be surrounded by family, how did that change the dynamic for you? And how did you manage that? Because that also comes with some unique opportunities and some challenges as well.
So how did I manage
Weaving your
the
family
crisis situations? Is that what you're saying?
taking the help. 'Cause I think a lot of us like to do things our way, but going towards family and getting help from family can be amazing, but it's also kind of a unique experience in different ways.
Yeah. Wow, that's such a interesting one, because I had to accept it more. Believe it, I was very fortunate. My husband was very involved in with the kids, and but I did have to let go and allow him to do things, and they were very different. Um, I think back on this crazy little story about, like it was driving me crazy that all the toys were not put away, and and we had to clean it out. They had grown on past all of these things. My way of doing it was going through everything and carefully talking about with the children, like, what do you want? What should we keep? Can we put this here? Can we get rid of this? And his was like, when they're asleep, you go up with a big trash bag and you clean it up. I just had to let that go, because 2 days later I walk upstairs and guess what? The cabinet's clean and it's fantastic. But the different, just letting that go. I don't know how you really can do that, except for the fact that, in those times you just have to kind of realize they're going to be done different, and it's going to be okay. And it's good for them to see different ways to do things,
No, that's
because
so healthy, right? And I think especially with your spouse, like managing that, there's such a difference. Like I think a lot of female attorneys married men that come with a lot of different skill sets. Like me and my husband's a first grade teacher. Like
Yeah.
we live in very different worlds and approach things in incredibly different ways, and letting go of your own way and really to get out of your own way so that
Yeah.
and let them lead in a different way is probably one of the biggest challenges of being married to me and parenting with me. So I think that's it's an incredible gift
Yeah.
to overcome that, and let
Well, and I think when it finally hit for me was when you are trying to do everything all the time, and it was like, I mean, I remember my mom would always say, don't try to be superwoman. And I would resent that. Like, I can do this all. And what I realized through time was I can, but maybe not all at the same time. Like if I look back over my career over 25 years, it's like, oh, I have done all of those things. It was just not all at the same time. And then really realizing when I needed to, ask for help and get help and being okay with that. And because what I realized was anxious mommy is not good mommy. And frustrated mommy is not good frustrated, is not good mommy. I mean, kids are mirrors and they would pick it up. There was this whole time when one of my daughters was just like getting these stomach pains that were just like gripping, and we were taking her to the hospital. And finally, I realized that's exactly what's going on with me. And she's mimicking in a lot of ways my being up here was putting her up here. And so I had to take care of myself and allow myself to ask for help and bring myself down. And what do you know? You know,
But that changes lives. What you just
it,
shared, it really does. Like, because our kids are imprinting on our energy, and
completely. Yeah.
and they're watching us with such
Yes.
hawk eyes, and we're so busy sometimes doing the doing. And I'll never forget, someone asked my son if he was going to be a lawyer, and he turned to her and said, "She does not make it look fun." And it really, wow, I was like, but I love my job.
Right.
I would want you to have such a fulfilling career, and
Right.
I'm probably not making it look that fun. So it kind of made me more conscientious of like
Yeah.
bringing myself down, bringing in the calm,
Mm-hmm.
so they could also be.
Yeah.
But
Completely.
it's definitely it's a very intentional process for people that are already
Absolutely.
very busy. So what things do you do to help keep you calm?
Oh gosh. A couple of things. One, I have always been a workout holic. And even during my career when I had to be up like at 5:30, it was horrendous. And I don't do it now because I want more sleep and I don't have to. I can do it at different times, but it was like I had to do it because if I would go 2 to 3 days without it, then I was
Hmm.
gonna tear someone's eyeballs out. And again, they would mirror me. My eyeballs would get lost. The other things are just, spending a lot of time thinking a lot more of I'm such a doer, and I had to learn to like think and really plan, because when I would just dive in and do, I would end up, trying to think through it as I was doing it and wasting a lot of energy. And so I had to kind of do some of that. And let's be honest, talking with other people and figuring out how they've done it, and some career coaching, all of those things have all helped together, and just getting to know yourself really better than anything is what are your triggers. And so if you learn those and, kind of working through those pieces is where I've had to, it's a work in progress, let's be honest.
All of us, but I think it's amazing resources, and to know that, knowing myself and what keeps you calm and keeps you happy is like,
Yeah.
And really taking the time to even
Mhm.
figure it out. I mean, even a 5-minute journal activity in the morning can just, it changes the whole day. And
Yeah.
it seems so silly, but it also is very powerful, and it setting that intention. I mean, I've
Correct.
been journaling saying, don't let anybody irritate you. Like, and I mean, just writing it down can sometimes facilitate a better attitude. So I think they're important kind of tools.
Exactly.
What would you say is like the greatest surprise that like, or some kind of, I mean, I went into motherhood with some beliefs about how it would look and what it would be like. And, you know, and I had a lot of siblings that would detest my unsolicited parenting advice before I had children. And I've been definitely proven wrong in what I thought was the way to go. But do you have any like long held beliefs that really were dispelled kind of by having kids and being a mom and trying to figure all this out?
Yeah, that one's hard. I had to really step back and think about this. I mean, going into as a young lawyer, to be honest, I never really wanted kids, to be honest. Let's put it out there. And part of it was because I had this belief, whether it came from not having any role models that had done, you know, both a career and raising kids, or it came from my own how much I poured into my career, like it was 100%, how am I going to pour another 100% into a family, like my expectations of myself and what I was going to do. And I always thought my husband was so cute. He would be like, all you really have to do is love them. And I'm like, that is so naive. Are you serious? I mean, all you have to do, I'm like, I am going to screw this up. I mean, 100%. If I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And it was, again, we've talked about it all the way through this. It's that letting go, being, just being, it wasn't how much I always did for my kids that they remember. They don't remember like whether I was at everything or not. In fact, if you ask them, they'll be like, oh no, mom was probably working. She probably wasn't there. But it was more like, when I get a Mother's Day card, it was for always being there or listening or, helping them through kind of big decisions. It was more just the being and the support. And so I think that belief I no longer think is at all naive. I think it is beautiful and fabulous. And I'm like, he wasn't right. I mean, they know that they are loved. And that was the most important thing, was that, even though there were times when, I think they saw when you're torn and when you would really do an effort to make it, even if you made it to the last heat of the last race of the last, race day or whatever, they saw you tried to get there and were there to celebrate. And so I think it was, kind of that whole piece was a little shocking to me. I felt like it was much more about all the things I could check off and that I did. And that was completely not what was important. They know I love them, and that's what was important. So
it's amazing because I think so many of us struggle with, that to let that guilt go.
Yeah.
While you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like right now, like in the middle of in the thick of all the activities and the things, and to not put pressure on ourselves to make it to everything, because I mean, even, I grew up in an era where, my parents did not come to our practices, and we are living in an era where parents go sit at their kids' practices. And if you can do that and that brings you joy, I mean, I just can't do that. I have to utilize that time differently. And sometimes you catch yourself feeling bad about that,
Yes.
you being present enough. But I think even what you shared about your children calling you for advice and you are a trusted advisor and knowing that they're loved is like the end game. Like that's all we're trying to get out of this is to be that resource for them that they know loves them fully. So I think it's so incredible that you can sit here knowing that, and letting go of, racing into events in your heels and suits, sweating, trying to make it. Because I'm sure you did that. I've done that before. On the phone. Totally. So that's incredible. We did, sub in the title of this show as mother-in-law. So I am, asking the question because I definitely learned a lot from my mother-in-law, and the in-law relationship is such an important one really to your family to navigate, and especially with being attorneys and having certain expectations about different relationships. I would just curious if you'd care to share any tips or your experience with your in-laws that helped you feel supported and or gave you opportunities for growth in this experience.
Yeah. My mother-in-law was amazing. Actually, I credit her a lot for um, my husband's attitude towards this is a two-part thing. She she worked all while he was growing up. And maybe not as much for the same reason that I did of, for her, I think it was an economic reality. But for me, it was, I was really blessed. It was more of a choice that I wanted to because I had this deep desire to do something that I enjoyed. But his mother was very ambitious as well. I remember she was the union steward and she held things together, for the finance committee for this program and that program. So she understood the duality and the ambition side of me. And I think I credit her a lot for that and never put as much pressure. I think we've talked a little bit about this, but my father-in-law was the opposite. I mean, very old school. And he would always tell my husband, like, oh, she's working way too hard. She shouldn't be doing that. And, oh, you shouldn't make her read to the kids every night because then they're going to start expecting it. My husband and I would look at each other like, God, we want them to learn to expect them to enjoy reading with us. But it was just a different era. And I think, it was so sweet. It was more his concern for me than anything. And like I said, with my mother-in-law, she didn't live near us, so I didn't have her around all the time. And she was so, we were very different, but she gave me my space. I think the only time she ever mentioned something was she preferred a different name than the one I gave my daughter. But that's the only thing. I never heard about parenting styles or skills. So, I can live with that.
My mom did that for me as well. So,
Yeah, don't tell anyone the names of the children.
Even just surprise everybody. It's way
exactly.
That's a free tip. But
exactly.
That's so excellent. Well, I just am so grateful that you were willing to share with us. Is there anything else that you feel like you'd want to, make sure that young moms know as they're venturing on this incredible journey?
Gosh, they're not alone. That and probably give it time. I think the biggest thing that, like, I have a team of all women and we're all at different stages with our kids and our career. And, but like the biggest thing that I always tell, especially new moms-in-law, mothers-in-law, is give it a year, go through all the different seasons, figure it out. Because there's going to be times when you are, the wheels are falling off the bus. You're overwhelmed. You don't feel like you're doing anything right. There's other times when you feel like you are rocking it. It's like, I got that, I got that, and you got to go through all the seasons, I think. But yeah, you're not alone. Reach out and talk to other moms. It is helpful. And whether or not you decide that their advice is the best for you or not, you still learn about other different ways to do things. And maybe try them out. Maybe they work, maybe they don't, but
well, I feel very lucky that you've been on my journey and have helped me along the way as well. So
thank you
so much. This has been such a fun conversation and so many important nuggets that you shared that really are encouraging and inspiring. So
well, I have learned a lot from you as well, Carrie. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you joining Mother-in-Law.
It's been fun. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Mothers-in-Law with Carrie Foliani. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found the insights and stories shared helpful as you navigate your own journey. I also hope that you enjoyed listening to my mother. Not that I always do. For more resources, to connect with the community, and to continue exploring how to align your personal and professional life, visit www.themothersinlaw.com. We appreciate you.